Number 14. Barging into Burger King. Shortly after 11 p.m. one night in late October 2023, a woman tried to climb through the drive-thru window at a Burger King restaurant in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Armed with a sheathed knife, she opened the door of her gray Nissan minivan and leaned through the vehicle's open window as she struggled briefly with a female employee. She could be heard yelling at the employee in surveillance footage of the incident, but a lot of her speech was censored, so it's unclear what she was saying. At one point during the fight, the woman tried removing the knife from its sheath, but the worker managed to push her back out of the window before she could inflict any harm. Throughout the bizarre confrontation, the woman's dog could be heard barking from inside her van. In January 2024, Tulsa police released a security video in an appeal to the public for information leading to the woman's identification and arrest. Lieutenant Justin Ritter, who heads the city's robbery unit, noted the winking face on the minivan side view mirror and that the door handle appeared to be missing. He said that these features were distinctive enough for someone who knows the woman to recognize the vehicle, but it's unclear whether any arrests have been made in the case. Number 13. Drive-thru holdups. Late one night in July of 2017, a suspected serial thief was captured cleaning out a drive-thru cash register on video at a Houston McDonald's. It was the fifth recent robbery of its kind, with 3 others occurring at McDonald's restaurants in the area and another happening at a Burger King. Video from each of the robberies showed the perpetrator reaching in through the drive-thru window and cleaning out the till. In this particular instance, the suspect forced his way in as the cash drawer popped open. After snatching up the cash, he got back into his blue sedan and drove off. Police released the footage to the public along with an appeal for information about the suspect's identity. An updated YouTube video notes that the crimes were solved, but authorities declined to publicly name the accused perpetrator. Robbing a restaurant through its drive-thru window may seem like a somewhat unconventional method for carrying out a theft, but it's not exactly uncommon, and in some cases the perpetrator takes the entire cash register rather than taking the time to empty it. In early 2017, an armed thief could be seen standing behind an SUV at a McDonald's drive-thru in Ocala, Florida. Once the vehicle pulled away, he approached the window and forced it open. He could be seen trying to open the register drawer while holding a pistol toward an employee with one hand. When the register failed to open, he grabbed the entire drawer and took off with it. Much like the suspect in Houston, he was suspected of committing multiple drive-thru robberies and was eventually arrested for his alleged crimes. Number 12. Darius Russell and Brandon Shelley. After stopping at a Houston bank for some cash in September 2018, a company owner drove back to his place of business, unaware he was being followed. Disturbing footage showed the owner pulling up to the business in his pickup truck and exiting the vehicle with 2 bags of cash in hand. A pair of thieves suddenly approached and pushed him to the ground, causing him to hit his head on the pavement. They stole the bags of money, then sped off in a dark blue Toyota sedan. The suspects were committing a crime known as bank jugging, which is when a victim is targeted and followed after being seen withdrawing money at a bank. Police released footage and appealed to the public for help identifying the suspects, but it's unclear whether the men were ever caught. In a similar incident that happened in the same city the following month, a pair of thieves tried to rob a victim after they made a bank withdrawal. According to the Houston police, Darius Russell acted as a lookout and getaway driver, while Brandon Shelley shattered the window of the victim's pickup truck and grabbed their money. The suspects attempted to flee, but the police were nearby and wasted no time apprehending them. They were each charged with burglary of a motor vehicle and engaging in organized crime. At the time, Brandon Shelley had an open warrant for allegedly burglarizing vehicles just weeks earlier. He had bailed out of custody for $4,000 after his previous arrest, but had skipped bail and was also on parole for organized crime and burglary charges. As a habitual offender, Shelley faced heightened consequences for any future convictions. That meant that he could face up to 25 years in prison for the charges he was facing after his latest arrest. Both Shelley and Russell were suspects in dozens of similar crimes in and around Houston and were subjects of multiple active investigations. While it's unclear what Brandon Shelley is up to these days, Darius Russell was arrested in yet another bank jugging incident in 2023. This time he was nabbed in Odessa, Texas, where a victim caught a man breaking into their car and was assaulted while trying to stop the burglary in progress. Another suspect was seen pulling a gun from inside a white SUV. Investigators connected the vehicle that was used in the robbery to similar incidents, indicating that bank jugging is not just an occasional activity for Russell. Records show that neither Russell nor Shelley are serving time in the state prison system, despite being repeat offenders. Number 11. Sean Lee Brunson. In a horrifying car crash that was captured on video in February 2023, the driver of a stolen Hyundai Sonata blew through a red light in Baltimore without so much as even tapping the brakes. Later identified as 34-year-old Sean Lee Brunson, the suspect struck another vehicle as he sped into oncoming traffic, causing both cars to hit a pedestrian and then slam into a brick building. The building collapsed on top of the vehicles almost immediately upon impact, leaving the cars covered in debris. In the video, police officers could be seen rushing over to dig the buried motorists out, while also ordering the suspect to put his hands up. 54-year-old Alfred Fincher died at the scene, while 3 other people were injured in the wreck. Brunson, who arguably walked away with the least injuries, was arrested on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter. He was also charged with criminally negligent vehicular manslaughter, unauthorized removal of a vehicle, driving without a license, and theft between $1,500 and $25,000. In the meantime, the officers who pursued the stolen Hyundai were investigated by the State Attorney General's Independent Investigation Division. Given the circumstances, there was reason to wonder if the officers rightfully continued the dangerous chase, or if they should have stopped pursuing the car for safety reasons. The agency concluded that the officers had obeyed commands to stop the chase seconds before the crash, and that they had done nothing to warrant criminal charges. During Brunson's trial in February 2024, the prosecution argued that Brunson was recognizable as the driver of the stolen Hyundai in the video of the crash due to the bright yellow shirt he was wearing. The state also pointed out that the car had been reported stolen the previous day, so it could reasonably be determined that the owner was not driving it when it crashed. Brunson's defense attorney claimed that his client had been charged in a case of mistaken identity. He also accused the prosecution of mistaking a glare on the car's window for a bright yellow shirt. The trial finished in February, but no verdict or sentence has been announced. State records show that Brunson remains in holding at the Chesapeake Detention Center. Number 10. Aaron Contreras. Ethan Rodriguez was playing a video game at his Dallas apartment on a Saturday evening in August 2023 when someone knocked on his door. He looked through the peephole and saw a man he didn't recognize, so he went back to his living room sofa and continued playing his game. A few moments later, the man rang the doorbell. Using the doorbell speaker, Ethan asked the stranger how he could help him. The man claimed to be a maintenance worker and said that he was there to check the air filters. As Ethan would later explain in an interview with news station WFAA, he knew this was a lie because the last time his household tried getting maintenance to service their air filters, they said they couldn't. So he told the phony maintenance man that nobody was home and that he would have to come back another day. Ethan once again returned to the couch to continue playing his game. A few minutes later, the imposter returned to the apartment with a masked man. They were both armed, and they began taking turns trying to kick Ethan's door in. Meanwhile, Ethan realized someone was trying to break into his apartment. He rushed to tell his brother, who was in another room, then grabbed his gun and returned to the living room, where he fired 13 shots through the front door. The suspects fired 2 shots in return, then fled the scene. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Ethan was especially relieved to learn that his neighbor wasn't home after seeing that the bullets had struck their apartment. He was also glad that his wife and baby were away from home that day. He shared the footage on social media and with the police. The fake maintenance worker was quickly identified as 30-year-old Aaron Contreras, whose decade-long criminal record includes several previous arrests for burglary and robbery charges. Contreras was charged with aggravated assault, deadly conduct, and attempted burglary. He remains in custody at the Dallas County Jail with bond set at $150,000. Police declined to reveal the masked suspect's identity, citing it as part of their ongoing investigation. The gunshots left Ethan's front door so damaged that he couldn't fully close it. When he spoke with WFAA, he was still waiting for his landlord to replace it and seemed doubtful that they would treat the matter with urgency. After what happened, Ethan and his family decided it would be best for them to move and get a fresh start in a place that wouldn't remind them of the attempted break-in. Number 9. Javar Marshall and Nasser Shafano. Police in Rochester, New York were hot on the trail of a stolen Nissan SUV one afternoon in June of 2022 when the vehicle blew a stop sign, took a turn at 50 miles per hour, and sideswiped a delivery truck at an intersection. The SUV flipped, slid on its roof, then rolled a few more times. It eventually came to rest on its side in front of the home of Sean Irizarry, whose doorbell camera captured the entire chaotic scene. As soon as the SUV came to a stop, police vehicles rushed up with their lights and sirens on and surrounded the vehicle. The thieves could be seen pushing out the broken front windshield as they climbed out of the vehicle. Irizarry ran outside in a panic as if he wanted to help but didn't know how. But he immediately backed away when he realized that several cops had exited their vehicles and were approaching with guns drawn. The thieves made a last-ditch effort to evade law enforcement by fleeing on foot, but they only made it a few steps before the police caught up with them in the yard next door. 21-year-old Javar Marshall and 19-year-old Nasser Shafano were each charged with 2 counts of felony possession of a weapon. Number 8. Sarah Sheffer. When 38-year-old Matthew Sheffer started unexplainably getting sick in late 2023, he installed hidden cameras at the Jefferson City, Missouri home he shared with his wife, 37-year-old Sarah, who worked as an art teacher. Sarah didn't seem like the criminal type, and the couple seemed happy by all appearances. But Matthew had run out of all possible other explanations for his mysterious illness, and he needed to know what was causing it. He also noticed that he always felt ill after eating or drinking things prepared by his wife, and he noticed a strange bitter undertaste to the food and drink. Matthew wasn't just suffering from an upset stomach or some other unpleasant digestive symptom. He was suffering from alarming symptoms like confusion, nausea, severe dry mouth, extreme fatigue, and blurred vision. On one occasion, he had confronted Sarah about an unusual-tasting drink she made for him. She allegedly told several different stories, first saying that she had urinated in the drink, then admitting to putting an industrial-strength adhesive in the beverage, only to backtrack and deny tampering with the drink at all. Her bizarre and varied explanations marked the turning point when Matthew decided to install the hidden cameras. It wasn't long before he stumbled upon suspicious footage that appeared to show his wife adding a material from a bag labeled Lily of the Valley to his smoothie. While the species is popular at weddings, Lily of the Valley plants are extremely toxic to humans. All of its parts are dangerous to consume, but its roots are especially potent. Ingesting the plant can lead to a cardiac emergency or even death. Matthew turned the drink over to the police for testing, which detected the presence of Lily of the Valley root. During questioning, Sarah allegedly admitted to deliberately poisoning her husband with harmful intent. According to authorities, she was having an affair with someone in Pakistan and planned to move there, which she may have been able to do if she had just gotten a divorce. But she'll have to put those plans on hold for now, as she awaits trial on first-degree attempted murder and armed criminal action charges. Number 7. Delivery driver saves the day. On what began as a normal day delivering pizzas in Brookhaven, Pennsylvania in April 2023, Tyler Morrell witnessed a stolen Kia barreling through people's front lawns across the street from a customer's home. It was followed by 2 pursuing police SUVs who avoided driving in anyone's grass but continued chasing the vehicle. The homeowner could be heard saying, "That's a high-speed chase," before Morrell walked toward the street saying, "You better not hit my car." As the car got back onto the pavement ahead of the ensuing police cruisers, it ran out of gas. The driver fled on foot and had a decent head start ahead of the police, but his flight from justice was short-lived. As he ran past the front yard where Tyler was watching the scene unfold from, the quick-thinking delivery man put his leg out and tripped the suspect, who went straight to the ground. He even managed to pull off the heroic stunt without dropping the customer's food, giving the police a moment to catch up to the suspect and take him into custody. Brookhaven Police Chief Michael Weiss commended Morrell for giving the police the help they needed. It was no problem, according to Tyler, who told ABC6 that he's tired of seeing crime go on, stating in his own words, "So if they needed a hand or a foot, I was there." He credited the skills he gained as a lacrosse player for his ability to act on a moment's notice. Sergeant Timothy Habich told CBS News that in his 15 years of being a police officer, he had never seen anything quite like it. And after all that craziness, he was still able to deliver the customer's food hot and was given a 10 out of 10 rating by the woman. The incident made national news headlines and even helped draw extra business to the pizzeria that Tyler works for. And 3 days after the viral act of bravery, police and and local residents came together to honor Tyler for helping to keep the community safe. Number 6. James Rail. When 22-year-old Alison Duckrow received a voicemail from her ex-boyfriend James Rail in July of 2022, she felt scared. The former couple had broken up 3 years earlier, and Alison wasn't interested in reconnecting. In the soft-spoken message, James said that he wanted to know how she was doing and that he was interested in talking. He went on to say, in his own words, "It's been a while since I've talked to you, and I don't know, I feel like I don't know what I feel." At the time, Alison was living with her parents in Sydney, Ohio. When she and her mother, Stacey Duckrow, returned home from breakfast the next morning, a car they didn't recognize pulled in behind them. The two women wasted no time corralling their 2 dogs and going inside. Just moments after they locked the door, a man approached and rang the doorbell. It was James Rail. Alison hadn't responded to his voicemail the previous day, but he had apparently failed to take it as a hint that she wanted nothing to do with him. When he rang the doorbell, Stacey told James through the intercom that her daughter didn't want to talk to him. The young woman's father, Mitch Duckrow, also chimed in, yelling at James to get off his porch as he continued to stand there with his hands behind his back. James finally walked away, only to return a few minutes later. He rang the doorbell while staring straight into the camera lens, then opened the outer glass door and tried opening the inner door. Stacey could be heard yelling, "James, no," as the family began to panic. She and Alison both dialed 911 as James began trying to break the door down. In the meantime, Mitch warned James that he was armed and repeatedly told him to leave the property. The women could be heard screaming in terror when they noticed that the door frame had split. It looked like James might force his way in any second as he continuously threw his weight against the ever-weakening door. Feeling like he had no other choice, Mitch retrieved his gun and fired 3 shots through the door. 911 was still on the line when the gunfire rang out, and the entire family could be heard wailing immediately afterward. James was struck by all 3 bullets and collapsed in the family's driveway as he tried running away. He died at the scene, and Alison tearfully thanked her father for taking action, saying that he had just saved her life. The Duckrows cooperated with law enforcement and were ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing by a grand jury, which ruled that Mitch had acted within his rights under Ohio's Stand Your Ground law. During police questioning, Alison said that she had broken up with James in their late teens because he was mean to her and complained about everything being wrong with her. She also claimed that James told her nobody else would ever love her. Following the breakup, she blocked her ex on social media. At one point, James moved to California. Alison claimed that when he moved back, his personality was different. He allegedly started mistreating all of his friends, and people lost interest in associating with him. When questioned by police about their drug use during their relationship, Alison admitted that they experimented with LSD, but she had been out of James's life for so long that she had no idea if he had a drug habit or if he might have been using drugs when he tried breaking her door down. Stacey Duckrow expressed sympathy for James's family, who believed that James had been wrongfully shot and demanded justice, even after the shooting was deemed justified. James's sister claimed that the investigation was rushed and accused Mitch of lying in wait for her brother, but the decision not to charge Mitch Duckrow stands, and it remains a closed matter as far as the court is concerned. Number 5. Catalytic converter thieves caught red-handed. Throughout 2022, a family in Turlock, California were the victims of repeated attempts to steal a catalytic converter from their vehicle as it sat parked in their driveway. When the 7th attempt came, the homeowners decided they'd had enough. Surveillance footage showed 2 men lying underneath the family's 2000 Ford Excursion as they sawed away at the vehicle's undercarriage in broad daylight. At one point, they were briefly startled by the car alarm, but they went right back to what they were doing as soon as the alarm stopped. Just moments later, an enraged, shirtless member of the household charged outside with a paintball gun in his hands, ready to fire. He was followed by his brother, and they shot the thieves with multiple paintballs as they ran to a getaway car with a driver waiting to speed off. Speaking with ABC 10, the attempted theft victim said that thieves had damaged their SUV during 3 previous attempts to steal the catalytic converter. This time, they nearly removed the entire catalytic converter before the family saw what was happening and took action. In a moment like that, it's easy to understand why the victims sprang into action, especially when the theft attempts were an ongoing problem. But a police spokesperson advised the public not to take these types of matters into their own hands for safety reasons, despite one's right to defend their property. The footage went viral, but the thieves were never identified. Number 4. Zooming Lee. During the summer of 2023, 36-year-old Umar Abdullah and his wife began noticing a strange chemical-like odor in their Tampa Bay apartment. At the same time, they began experiencing excruciating headaches that they described as worse than migraines. The couple also suffered an array of other alarming symptoms, including shortness of breath, nausea, drowsiness, dizziness, and burning of the eyes. But the most alarming symptom of their mystery illness came when they started losing chunks of their hair and their baby went bald. After dealing with the unexplained odor for a month straight, Abdullah decided to get to the bottom of what was happening to his family by tracing its source. Suspecting that it was coming from outside the apartment, he hid a camera inside a potted plant near his front door. He was shocked to see his neighbor, a 36-year-old chemistry PhD student named Zhuming Li, crouching in front of his apartment and injecting what looked like a liquid-filled syringe into the crack beneath the door. In the footage, Li could be seen covering his nose and trying not to inhale the substance. Abdullah's household and Li had known each other for over a year, but their once pleasant relationship soured after Abdullah and his wife had a baby. Li began to complain about noise from everyday activities like toilets flushing and drawers opening and closing. These are certainly things people get used to hearing when they live in apartment buildings because it's unrealistic to expect silence. Abdullah later told local station KKTV that he and his wife were traumatized by their neighbor's sudden anger. He said they were afraid to make any noise whatsoever and that it scared them to live above another apartment. The couple even worried about possibly triggering an explosive reaction from their neighbor by accidentally dropping something on the floor. But while Li was clearly no longer interested in being cordial with his neighbors, Abdullah never imagined that he would try to poison them or cause serious harm until he saw the shocking hidden camera footage. Investigators tested the substance, which turned out to be a dangerous mixture of methadone and hydrocodone. These are strong opioid painkillers, and ingesting too much can make someone sick or even kill them fairly easily. Authorities charged Li with battery, aggravated stalking, and dispersing a chemical agent. He pleaded not guilty and was initially released on bail, but he was deported in late 2023, which means that the criminal case is essentially void. The good news is that he's no longer in the country and he likely won't be allowed to return. That means Abdullah and his wife can at least take comfort in knowing that he no longer poses a threat to them. In the end, Li didn't only harm his neighbors. He was just a month away from graduating from the University of South Florida as a talented up-and-coming scientist at the time of the arrest. It takes a long time to earn a PhD, and after putting in all that work, the university expelled him. His cruel decision to torment his neighbors ended up costing him dearly, and it's likely safe to assume that in hindsight, he'd say it wasn't worth it. Number 3. BMW owner blindsided by car bandits. 24-year-old Lance Cullen of Brisbane, Australia, was trying to sell his BMW in 2022 to pay for his upcoming wedding when an interested potential buyer named Amy responded to his Facebook marketplace ad. He had spent years modifying the expensive vehicle and was hoping to get nearly $30,000 for it. Lance and Amy made plans to set up a meeting for the potential buyer to inspect the car. Two men showed up and everything seemed fine at first. When they asked if they could take the car for a test drive, Lance asked for their driver's licenses and proof of funds. Ignoring his request, the men got into the Beamer and sped off. It all happened extremely fast, during a split second when Lance had looked away from the car. But the thieves clearly weren't thinking straight because they had left the car they came in parked on the street with 2 passengers inside. And it was clear, based on how erratically the thieves were driving, that they didn't plan to return the BMW. Lance went over to the car the men had arrived in to capture footage of the license plate number with his phone. He later said that the man and woman sitting inside looked like deer in headlights when they realized he was approaching. They frantically started the car and tried putting it into gear while also attempting to shield concealed their faces from view. Speaking with Australia's A Current Affair, Lance said they definitely didn't seem like they had enough brain cells to go between each other, but they did end up getting started and drove away. The car theft and much of what followed were captured on home surveillance footage, which showed Lance yelling to his father to call the police when he realized that he had been duped. He had been caught completely off guard by the thieves, who were pleasant and talkative during the meeting. Lance had even mentioned to them that he was selling the car to pay for his wedding, but it didn't deter them from following through with their plan. 4 days later, Lance received a tip on the BMW's location and tracked it down. It was heavily damaged and most likely a total loss, and while it was insured for market value, it had been worth a lot more due to the modifications Lance had made to it. As it turned out, the car that the thieves had arrived in was also stolen, and sadly, it appears as though the culprits were never found. Number 2. John Hargreaves. An ordinary day at the Independence Township Police Station in New Jersey took an unexpected and sudden turn in September 2023 when an SUV crashed into the building while blaring Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. The vehicle narrowly missed an officer, and thankfully nobody was hurt. The driver, 34-year-old John Hargreaves, had allegedly rammed his SUV into someone's garage door just minutes earlier with the intention to harass the victim. According to prosecutors, he crashed into the police station deliberately, and it certainly appears that way in surveillance footage of the crash. Almost immediately after his vehicle came to a stop, Hargreaves could be seen exiting the SUV and throwing his hands in the air in a celebratory fashion. But it was no laughing matter to the police, especially to those who were in the building at the time and could have easily wound up dead if they had been in the wrong place when the collision occurred. Hargreaves was subdued at gunpoint and charged with burglary, criminal mischief, and a weapon-related offense. He's also facing a terrorism count and could end up serving up to 30 years in prison if convicted as charged. When news of Hargreaves' arrest broke, the alleged motive for his destructive crime spree was unknown. Subsequent reports claimed that he wanted revenge against a woman who lived in the home he crashed into for supposedly hypnotizing him. The hypnotizing incident had happened the previous year, according to Warren County prosecutor Jim Pfeiffer. But Hargreaves was nevertheless upset about it, and he apparently decided to handle his emotions in the most reckless way possible. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. Number 1. Porch piracy victim strikes back. In recent years, Washington's Seattle-Tacoma area has ranked among the top worst places in the US for porch piracy. The problem began years ago and doesn't seem to be getting any better, with the region nabbing the number 1 spot on the list in 2022. After having numerous packages stolen off his front porch and not receiving much help from the police in 2017, a Tacoma homeowner took matters into his own hands. 34-year-old Jeremy Barrow had become fed up with the amount of time and money he was losing in his efforts to prevent porch pirates from stealing his packages. He already had a surveillance camera which caught perfectly clear footage of thieves taking things off his doorstep, but no arrests were made, even after he turned the video over to law enforcement. Barrow became even more infuriated when high-cost shipments of Jeep parts and electronics were stolen. Unable to rely on the police to hold the thieves accountable, he invented what became known as the blank box. It looks like a normal package sitting in plain sight, and it's a relatively large box, which is especially tempting to anyone with sticky fingers. When the person tries lifting the box, it fires a 12-gauge shotgun blank, which makes a lot of noise but is not dangerous. It took Barrow about a year to perfect his invention's design. The first version of the blank box was crude and impractical, involving a setup of materials that were activated by pulling on a fishing line that was attached to the front doorknob. But Barrow gained immense satisfaction from watching thieves approach his porch, thinking they were about to make off with something good, only to have the daylight scared out of them as they picked up the box. The first time Barrow deployed the blank box on a thief, the man was so terrified he dropped his phone in the front yard without noticing as he ran away. Barrow gave the phone to the police, who identified the owner as a resident who lived just a few blocks away, but the man wasn't charged with any crimes. When people began hearing about the blank box, they showed an interest in getting one of their own. Demand for the device peaked as the holiday season rolled around, which is a known time when front porch thefts spike. A police spokesperson told the Seattle several times that the device sounded illegal based on the description she was given. At the time, Barrow had not been charged with any crimes because nobody had reported being a victim of the black box. But it was a possibility if someone decided to go that route, which would most likely involve having to admit that they were trying to take something that wasn't theirs. The blank box was also a lawsuit risk, according to the spokesperson. But it's easy to understand why a homeowner would become fed up and turn the tables on package thieves, especially when the culprits aren't being arrested for their crimes. Barrow admitted that it wasn't a foolproof solution to the porch piracy problem, but it was the best answer he could come up with. He was also happy to share his surveillance footage of thieves being scared off by the unexpected bang.
10. A naked plunge. When a man from China was caught naked in bed with his married mistress by the woman's husband in 2018, he wasted no time fleeing through the window of the couple's 4th-floor apartment. He didn't even stop to get dressed or put shoes on, leaving him entirely exposed as he dangled from the windowsill. Footage of the bizarre escape showed him desperately trying to secure a foothold on the side of the building. But being seen naked quickly became the least of the man's problems, as he lost his grip on the building and plunged dozens of feet onto the pavement below, landing on a garbage can on his way down. According to online reports, he suffered a spinal injury in the fall. Social media users were shocked by the video, with many commenting on how the man clearly didn't think things through before putting himself in life-threatening danger. The incident bore similarities to a similar event that had happened more than 2.5 years earlier, when a husband in another Chinese city walked in on his wife in bed with another man. With no time to put any clothes on, the woman's lover fled through a window of the 3rd-story apartment. Bystander footage showed the butt-naked man shimmying down a pipe along the facade of the building. He stopped several times along the way, seemingly frozen with fear before losing his grip and falling. Onlookers rushed over to help, and video of the fall went viral. It's unclear whether either of the men suffered lasting injuries. 9. Drug-selling single mums. 25-year-old Courtney Larkin and 21-year-old Ellie Morton were bagging cocaine at an apartment in Greater Manchester, England, before a planned lunch date in 2022, when law enforcement raided the property. Inside the home, police found 37 bags of crack that had been packaged for wholesale to local dealers. They also uncovered an oldie shopping bag filled with crack cocaine, along with several pieces of drug paraphernalia, including mirrors, razor blades, and scales. Altogether, the task force seized nearly 2 kilos of cocaine, with an estimated street value of over £123,000, $156,234 US. According to authorities, Courtney Larkin had recently set up a drug-selling hotline. Prosecutors claim that when Ellie Morton arrived at the home, she asked Larkin to leave for their planned outing. But Larkin insisted that she had to finish packaging the cocaine before she could go anywhere. Morton was allegedly shocked by the situation, but agreed to help for the sake of getting the task done and over with so they could continue on with their day. Neither of the women had any prior convictions, and they both refused to cooperate with the investigation. But the evidence showed that Larkin had been running a drug racket for about a month before getting caught. The mother of two's defense lawyer claimed that Larkin struggles with mental health issues and that she turned to drugs to cope. She pleaded guilty to charges stemming from the drug bust and was sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison. Morton received a 2-year suspended prison sentence, along with 150 hours of community service and 40 days of rehab. 8. Caught red-handed, literally. A Newport, Vermont resident was shocked when a woman showed up at her door in the middle of the night with bloody hands in 2021. Later identified as 42-year-old Jennifer Foster, the woman claimed that a man had hurt her, and the neighbor called 911. Police arrived at the home of the incident to find a 27-year-old man suffering from a stab wound to the abdomen. The bloody knife that was used to stab the victim was in the kitchen sink. As it turned out, Foster wasn't hurt like she claimed, and the blood on her hands was from the real victim's injuries. According to investigators, the man got into an altercation with Foster while trying to retrieve his cell phone from the apartment where the incident occurred. He told police that Foster had said that she hoped he died after she stabbed him. His wounds were serious, but he survived the attack. The victim didn't want Foster to get in trouble, but authorities slapped her with an attempted murder charge. She took a plea deal and admitted to lesser charges, including aggravated domestic assault with a weapon. As part of the agreement, Foster was sentenced to 18 months to 12 years in prison. The attempted murder charge was dismissed with prejudice, which means that prosecutors can bring a case against her in the future if they feel the evidence justifies doing so. 7. Porch pirate Karen. In October 2021, a New Zealand couple caught a woman swiping packages off their doorstep in Auckland. Cell phone footage that was later shared on social media showed the pair telling the alleged thief to put the items down. The woman claimed that she was only there to hand the packages to the couple, but when they questioned why one of the packages was in her purse, she got angry and threw one of the items at them. After reluctantly removing the package from her bag and handing it over, she swore at the couple and gave them the middle finger while walking away. While the tense interaction ended without any serious consequences for either party, the victims were shocked by the so-called Karen's attitude after being caught red-handed on their property, where she had no business being in the first place. 6. Ashley Hard. Police in Kingsport, Tennessee responded to an unusual report in 2020 when a family called 911 claiming that a stranger was in their house and wearing their clothing. The homeowners told responding officers that they arrived to find a woman wearing a Cheech and Chong shirt and a pair of jeans that belonged to a household member. When they tried approaching the stranger, later identified as 31-year-old Ashley Hard, they realized she had a knife in her hand. The victims said that they didn't know how Hard got into their house. To make the situation even more confusing, one of the home's closets was filled with items that didn't belong to the family, including a backpack, purse, rug, and a glass pipe, with signs that it had been used to smoke drugs. Police found Hard near the home, still wearing the stolen clothing. She denied breaking into the family's house but was arrested on suspicion of aggravated burglary, theft, and public intoxication. According to responding officers, Hard's pupils were dilated and her eyes were bloodshot. She was speaking unusually fast and couldn't focus on a simple conversation, most likely due to the 4 bags of methamphetamine that she allegedly admitted to using that night. 5. Teenager takes down grave robber. In a disturbing incident that was captured on camera in 2023, a woman caught a man robbing graves at a cemetery in the English city of Sheffield. During an evening stroll with her dog at an adjacent property, 19-year-old Shelby Leigh Francis overheard what sounded like cans rattling and other movements nearby. She peered through the graveyard's perimeter fence and saw the suspect stooped over burials and filling a shopping bag with headstone decorations and other items that people had left at their loved ones' graves. Francis immediately grabbed her cell phone and began filming the man, who ran in the opposite direction as soon as he realized he'd been caught. The young woman put her phone away, picked up her dog, climbed over the fence and began searching for the suspect. She caught up with him at another set of burials, where he was cramming stolen items into his pants. Disgusted by what she was witnessing, Francis held no words back as she admonished the man for his actions. He allegedly tried claiming that he was in the cemetery because his daughter had died the day before, but Francis knows the man's daughter and that she was alive and well. The lie only made Francis more angry. She ordered the man to return the items to the grave markers he'd taken them from, and he began putting the stolen items back. Satisfied with his cooperation, Francis put her phone away, at which point the suspect attempted to run from the scene with the remaining items in the shopping bag. Francis caught up with the thief and fought the bag away from the thief before allowing him to leave the scene. She put the bag near the entrance of the cemetery, hoping it would still be there when staff members arrived the next morning. Another cemetery visitor found the bag the next day and handed it directly over to employees, who helped families reconnect the items with the graves they were missing from. While it appears as though the thief avoided any trouble with the police, he suffered the arguably worse consequence of having the footage of his alleged crimes broadcasted on social media, where it quickly went viral. 4. Public official decorates train tunnel. 46-year-old Finnish politician Paavo Arhinmäki is Helsinki's deputy mayor for culture and leisure. He also apparently moonlights as a graffiti artist, as the public learned in 2023. Security guards caught Ahinmarki and a friend right after they'd finished spray painting the interior of a railway tunnel. According to Finnish street art experts, the illegal artwork resembled the style of a graffiti artist who became popular in New York City during the 1970s. Ahinmarki is a strong supporter of street art, but he broke the law and his activities disrupted train traffic. Taxpayers footed the €3,500 bill for the graffiti's cleanup. The disgraced public official apologized on Twitter for his stupid fooling around after the incident began making news headlines. Ahinmarki admitted that he had broken the law, but as of July 2023, he hadn't been charged with any crimes. Speaking with The Guardian, he reassured readers that he and his friend would be reimbursing the public coffers for the cleanup costs. While Ahinmarki has taken responsibility for his actions, he remains an ardent supporter of street art, and he was clearly proud of his work, even though he was reluctant to admit it. He told The Guardian that it was a shame that the piece he made with his friend was removed so quickly, complaining that he didn't even get a chance to take proper pictures. The public official went on to say that he understood why the mural was washed away since, in his words, it would have probably become a tourist attraction otherwise. Ahinmarki spent much of the interview advocating for a more tolerant approach towards street art. He argued that graffiti does not encourage other crimes, like some experts have claimed, including more graffiti, and pointed out that there's a difference between someone spray painting the back of an abandoned building and the side of someone's house. 3. Half-naked nosedive. A Swiss man was indulging in an afternoon rendezvous with his married lover one day in early 2020 when the woman's husband unexpectedly arrived home. Unlike some of the other cases on today's list, he at least had a pair of underwear and socks on when he fled through a window of the second-story apartment. A shocking clip of the escape showed the man dangling from the window in his briefs as he desperately tried to get a better grip on the windowsill. Just moments later, he fell and crash-landed on top of a van. As he plummeted toward the ground with his arms and legs flailing, a woman who was filming the video could be heard saying, "Oh my God," in German. The man landed belly first on the van, then rolled off the vehicle's roof and landed on the pavement below. Swiss authorities confirmed that the incident happened in the municipality of Wallisellen, but declined to provide further details on the embarrassing 20-foot plunge. 2. Defiant shopper versus responding deputies. When employees at a Target store in Atlanta noticed a customer stealing a very large and expensive TV one day in 2023, they immediately alerted police. By the time officers began searching for the suspect, he'd stolen one TV and had returned to the store to steal another. A cop was waiting at the store's exit when the alleged thief attempted to wheel the second stolen oversized appliance into the parking lot. According to law enforcement, the suspect ran when he saw the cop. The officer quickly caught up with him, but he was determined not to go down without a fight. Body cam footage showed the men fighting in front of the store as the suspect yelled, "I didn't mean it," and repeatedly wailed about how he didn't want to go to jail, something he should have thought about before he stole expensive merchandise in broad daylight. In the video, the officer and the suspect could be seen tussling on the pavement as a crowd of horrified onlookers gathered. At some point during the struggle, the suspect began repeatedly saying, "Please stop, I need to go to the hospital." But the cop held him down until backup arrived, and he was taken into custody with minor injuries on suspicion of felony shoplifting and obstruction. 1. Handicapped parking DUI. In November 2020, Orlando police officer Bruce Stoke responded to a report about a woman who was slumped over behind the wheel of her Jeep in a handicapped parking space outside a local gas station. The caller said that the motorist remained unresponsive despite multiple attempts to wake her up. She was still passed out in the driver's side of her Jeep with her phone in her hand when Officer Stoke arrived. Stoke later said that he knocked on the window repeatedly before the woman began waking up. She struggled to comply with the officer's simple order to open the door of the vehicle. When she finally got the door open and handed over her driver's license, Stoke noticed the distinct odor of alcohol on her breath along with other signs of intoxication. He also established that the woman was not handicapped, despite being parked in a handicapped spot. After performing poorly on a field sobriety test, the suspect was arrested on suspicion of DUI. A breathalyzer test revealed that she had a blood alcohol content of 0.232, nearly 3 times the legal limit for driving in Florida.
Thanks for watching. Usually when someone commits a crime on video, the person who captures the footage is quick to hand it over to the police. But that's not always the case, especially when someone has to worry about the potential consequences for getting a powerful person in trouble. If you discover doorbell camera footage of an unsolved crime being carried out by high-ranking local gang members, how quick would you be to show it to law enforcement? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.